Hi, welcome to Chamber Talk. I'm Andrew, and today we are honoured to have Ruthi Hanchett, who is the president of the Fullerton School District board, and she's also full circle now. She's finishing her term and she's campaigning now for her next term, and she was originally on our fourth ever episode back in October 2022. Thanks, Ruthi, for coming back on.
It's great to be back.
So I want to, if you could cast your mind back a little bit, I want to start off with a little bit of the conversation that we had back in 2022 when you were first campaigning. What sort of comes to mind that was going through your mind at the time? Obviously, you're a lot more senior in the years now. So what was going through your mind at that time?
You know, I was really excited. I didn't know a lot. I've learned so much, and that experience of campaigning really was so valuable. I got to know our community a lot better, and I discovered a lot about myself as well. I discovered how much I love meeting people, hearing their stories. That inspired me to want to continue to do the work even more so and bring those stories, those experiences, our pride in our kids and our community to the Fullerton School District. Since being on the board, there's so much to learn, so much nuance and complexity to a huge organization with over 2,000 staff members and 11,000 students that we serve. But while I've learned so much, the joy, the bedrock reason I ran continues to be the same. Just deep care for our kids, wanting to see our community grow, and just a strong conviction that public education is the most important tool we have to transform our society, and such a powerful way that we can make a difference.
Now, one of the things you mentioned there, because there's a few there that the questions we've got to ask, so but there was one thing that stood out there. You were saying that obviously the experience, it was so different than what you imagined. Do you mind touching on maybe a couple of things that stick in your mind that are experiences that maybe none of us would even think about for somebody running in such a position?
When I think about what maybe surprised me, on the one hand, I think I underestimated or couldn't experience know how much joy and just pride and just deep gratitude for our school district that I've gained through having this role and having this insider knowledge of what we do. We are innovative. Fullerton School District does things that nobody else does, whether that's new innovative things like our tiny home and serving our community and building school. Our 8th graders are building houses for people experiencing homelessness. To we just found out we won for the, I think, 6th time in a row, national championship debate team.
Wow. 2
of our schools took home co-winners of the national debate team for junior high of the entire nation.
That's going to be like a record.
It's amazing. It is a record. We keep beating the record. So much pride and so much just appreciation for our teachers and our staff that work so hard and are innovative and committed every single day to love our kids and serve them well. But I think on the other flip side, one of the things that I would say is hard, but still worth it, is really knowing the depth of pain that our kids experience too. Being there when things don't go well, whether that's a personal tragedy of a family or a child. There were moments where we had families taken away by ICE last summer. We've had, I know, kids experiencing homelessness, hungry, suicide attempts, things like that really threaten the well-being of our kids, that when you're on the board, you have that insider information, and you have to make quick decisions sometimes about how to respond and support our staff through those hard times. And I think it's a little bit like being a parent. The joy is worth it,
sure, but
it's a heavy burden to carry as well.
Now, I don't wish to make light of it, so we will touch back onto the ICE and that type of topics in a moment. But you did mention something that I know a lot of businesses get involved with and sponsor sometimes, is the tiny house or the tiny home. Do you mind sharing a little bit about that program so other listeners can hear about it and what it's about, and maybe even want to get involved next time?
Absolutely, yeah. And there's lots we can learn on the Fullerton School website to learn more people want to find out more. But it's this incredible partnership that we've created over the years. I think we've just finished our 3rd tiny home. And when I say we, it's really our 8th grade students and all the partners that have come around them, 7th and 8th grade students at Nicholas Junior High. But this program started a few years ago when our staff were looking for something innovative, creative to do that not only gave opportunities for our students to try something new, but also could solve some real world problems and help them face some challenges. So we came up with this idea. Pablo Diaz was the person who suggested it, but our innovative team just really ran with it, introducing this concept to bring woodcraft and construction and development to Nicholas Junior High. So it's become a course that students are able to take with woodshop and others and construction. It's become actually an academy where students can take it multiple years in a row. And in that time, they learn the skills that they need to build a home. And so they practice by building an actual tiny home. And so now they've completed 3 different tiny homes, which are then located at a Fullerton School District property. And we've created a little village of families that because Fullerton School District works with our families that are experiencing homelessness, we are able to then identify families that would really benefit from this opportunity to have free, supportive housing for a period of time. And we now are looking at our 3rd family able to move into this tiny home that our 8th graders really built. And I think one of the really great things about this partnership is it's brought our community together. So we've seen, as you mentioned, from the Chamber of Commerce to ROP to the Building and Trade Union, to many of the construction companies in our community. They've donated, from Home Depot donating, I think, countertops and appliances, to Windor donating windows. We've had many folks show up to help roofing and flooring and things like that, both training and teaching our students, but also donating their service, their time, and their goods to make sure that this is a quality home where families do actually want to live. And then the Fullerton Education Foundation is the other group that has really donated a lot of the seed money to get this program started, and continuing to support that. We just received a really large grant from the Orange County Department of Ed in order to help pay for the curriculum and the teachers, because again, it has to be about teaching, right? So they're really funding that piece of it that's about the instruction, the learning and opportunities for our students to learn these skills and trades. That we are really excited about that grant that allows us to continue to offer these courses to our students going forward.
And then when you have projects like this, which turn into, a big part of the school curriculum, is it like after hours type curriculum? Are you allowed to put it into your own, like the school hours? How does that work?
Yeah, it's their elective.
Oh, okay.
So these junior hires at Nicholas, many of them are taking it as 2 different electives. So most junior hires students have 2 electives. So whether that's, band and art or theater or whatever it is they choose, these students are choosing to do this woodshop construction course.
Oh, that's fantastic.
And that's what they're learning, getting academic credit.
Right.
They're learning these important skills, and they're building a house for families to enjoy.
Yeah, no, it's 3 in 1 for sure, isn't it? It's amazing that. And you'll always use it.
Yeah. And our teacher, Mr. Vidalis, is an incredible instructor who's really mentored our kids and really made this a success as well.
That's fantastic. That's great to hear. And it is wonderful to see. I remember going there for the first one, and it's a lot of work that folks have put in there as well. A lot of love, care, and attention, and you can see how the community have come together. The school districts really pulled that in. It's really lovely to see that. One of the things that I noticed and see throughout the district is over the last 3 years, a lot of things have changed, and you sort of touched on that topic a moment with these ice raids and things like that. And I do remember you were a great advocate for the school district, whether it was in front of the camera or whether it was just in local community events. Looking back over the last 3 years, what surprised you the most about that? Was it that? Was it other things? What was the biggest surprise you've seen during your tenure?
Yeah, I mean, that certainly has been one of the biggest challenges that we faced. And I think it's not only a challenge and a threat to our kids and their families, but really to foundationally the right to public education. Because these challenges and what we're seeing right now at the federal level to dismantle the Department of Education, whether that's taking away funding and oversight for children with disabilities, children from immigrant families and status, and others. We're really seeing this undermining of public education and the right of every single child, no matter who they are, who their family is, where they came from, what their abilities, to have the best inclusive, free and appropriate education. So that, I guess I maybe didn't anticipate that being such a huge challenge, but I'm so grateful to be in the position I'm in and the power that I have to continue to be a voice for our kids. And not only just here in Fullerton, but really hopefully adding to those voices that are fighting to make sure that public education continues and that we have full funding and support for that no matter who and what, because these are our kids and their future and our future as a society and a democracy really depends on them getting an excellent education.
Now to most folks, it sounds way political and, they're not quite sure the process. Would you mind sharing with us some of the things that you and even the staff of the school have to go through these processes? Like, we're all understanding, yes, you might go to your local senator or you write a letter, but what is going on behind the scenes?
Yeah. Well, for us, I feel like we sort of turn inward in many ways and ask the questions, how do we keep our kids safe?
Right.
How do we make sure that they come to school every day and know that they're going to be taken care of, that they're welcome, they're wanted, they're safe where they're at, and that parents feel that too, because they're not going to send their kids to school if they don't feel comfortable. Leave them there, right.
Yeah.
And our kids are facing these fears in very real ways. I mean, I was thinking about last summer where we had a lot of activity here in Fullerton and the greater North Orange County area, where ICE raids were happening daily, and families were afraid to leave their homes, and kids were afraid if they went to school. We continued to have summer school, that if they came home, their parents may not be there, and because of that, families weren't leaving the home. They weren't necessarily working. We experienced a lot of families struggling to pay the bills, to have food, and just the mental health toll that took on families and kids, where they literally were inside all summer instead of going to the park or hanging out with friends. They really felt unsafe to leave their homes. So we responded so quickly. But even backing up to that, really, it was in November 2024 when we knew that the Trump administration would be making changes to national policies, and we I gathered my colleague, Vanessa Estrella, who had been absolutely newly elected to the board weeks within her election. We gathered some of our experts in the community that know immigration, know the challenges that we would probably be facing, and said, how do we make sure our kids are safe? And that started with asking the questions of our staff, who has data? Who has information? Are we keeping information about legal status, where kids were born? Answer is no. Right. But we wanted to make sure that information was protected. And we made sure families knew that, so they felt comfortable and safe. And we said, if you gave a birth certificate when you registered your kid to come to kindergarten, you can come pull that out. It doesn't have to be in their file. All we need to know is they're 5, they can come to kindergarten. Right. So really making sure families felt safe and comfortable, starting with data. Then we trained our staff. We asked the questions, what happens if somebody shows up and asks to have access to our campus, to our kids, to our information? How should they respond? Making sure that those were really airtight. We've shared that information with families. We've really made a big effort to reach out to families to make sure that they knew their rights. So we brought on legal experts. We asked questions and had them explain what their rights are, no matter what your legal status, what your rights are. Your child has absolutely the right to come to school every single day and receive a public education in California and in the United States. And then we talked about, what does it mean to keep families safe, to be prepared if the worst happens? If your family was separated and someone had to leave the country, how could we make sure American citizen kids have passports, are able to travel and be reunited with family when necessary? Who would take care of your kids? How do we make sure they've got an affidavit and information so that their trusted loved ones know how to take care of them and care for them well? So just asking all those questions, helping our families feel as prepared as possible in the conditions we're in, and then making it very clear and pushing back on the rhetoric that we want our kids, we love our kids, they're our children, and they're welcome and wanted here. And so making sure that was clear from the ways that we communicated with kids, resources we put out to the families, whether that was communicating through teachers and staff and principals. We sent home guidance on how to talk to your kids about immigration, just helping parents deal with the tough time they were in, making sure that they knew we had their back, we supported them, and this was a priority for us as a district. So that started with a resolution at the district level that myself and then Vanessa and I brought forward. Our staff, I was so grateful and proud of the way that they really embraced this challenge. And then we became a leader to the community. I gathered folks last August from other school districts, and we shared best practices. And I said, this is what we're doing in Fullerton. You can learn from our examples. Here's the template. Please use it. And other school districts throughout the county also adopted some of our practices as well.
So I'm going to go into another question which sort of comes off what you were just mentioning there, and I'd like to say thank you very much for what you guys did there, because it sounds like the school district really as a whole took that very seriously and made everyone feel comfortable and safe at the same time. And you sort of mentioned this a little bit before about having to make sure that there was a comfort level and that people were able to seek help where needed. And you started off with a story where, a family had sort of like gone missing and maybe kids were at school and what have you. What happens in that instance for the school district? I mean, we don't really think about that, do we? We just see on the TV a raid, people getting put in a van. But, I mean, what, the kids like on their own to defend? What happens?
Well, fortunately, we haven't had too many examples of that, but we've had families, our students in Fullerton, that have faced those situations where family members, loved ones have been disappeared, have been taken by ICE and relocated. Yeah. So it's been very challenging. What we've done is try to, as best we can, help families prepare so that it's always an emergency. It's always a crisis. Right. But at least giving them a sense of having some preparedness so that there's not now who's in charge, who's going to take care of our children. And so in some instances, I can say family members, relatives stepped up. In some cases, those kids left our district because the family member lived far enough away that it didn't make sense for them to continue to come to Fullerton School District, even though we supported them in that transition to enroll in a new school district, to have the support they need, and to follow up as best we can to make sure their needs were being met. It's tragic.
Now, you mentioned something there. I remember in the news a little bit ago, and there was a little bit of controversy regarding how the state of California had changed some type of regulation or ruling regarding who can just pick up your kids. And I know for many years, schools have been extremely disciplined as to, you're not on the list, you can't pick them up. What was going on? Do you mind sharing what that was about?
Yeah,
to clear
there was a lot of controversy around that. And I mean, I heard the first time I think I ever heard of it, someone said, "Did you hear that traffickers can now take your children out of school?" And I was like, I've been working in anti-trafficking for about 20 years, and I don't think that's how this works. Right. So, no, that's not how it is. But it really was just a way for families to gain that sense of control and power to ensure that the right people were going to be there for their kids if they needed it. Right. And so it doesn't transfer the power of, you're not suddenly the new guardian and the new parent. It just allows for that temporary care for kids. And that's what we want, is kids to be with somebody that they know and trust, and their parents have said, this is the right person for my kid. And, so the school district doesn't get involved in making the decision about who cares for your children. We simply respect the law and the certified paperwork that says this best friend or neighbor or auntie or cousin or tia, whoever it might be, that the parents have designated is now the person that can care for kids when parents aren't able. And I mean, that's the worst case possible choice for a parent to have to make that decision, so it really is not a last resort choice that parents are having to make these days. And so we want to just make it as easy as possible for parents to have that little bit of peace that they've got somebody who's going to care for their kids if they can't.
Well, it sort of makes sense, because a lot of parents both are working now, aren't they? Anything could happen. You could break down on the freeway trying to get up. The other one can't get out of work right now, or is tried or too far away. Yeah. Who's going to pick up your little one? I totally understand that.
Yeah. I mean, every time you register your kid for school, you fill out who's allowed to pick up your kid.
Right.
I have one of my best friends on there. We're not related, but I know if I'm not going to make it, I can text her and she can pick up my kid. So it's really not... It's
not as open as everybody
no.
made it sound
and it's meant to keep kids safe. And I think that's fundamentally what we're trying to do.
So one of the things, obviously, 3 years now. Congratulations! It's a full term, isn't it? Look at that!
Yeah.
No, almost 4. When you reflect back over the 3 years, what sort of accomplishments are you most personally proud of?
Yeah. Well, we've already talked about our response to immigration and just the threat that brought to public education. I would say that's definitely top of my list. But I came to the school district really wanting to bring a perspective of online safety and looking. My background, my experience is anti-human trafficking, child abuse prevention, protection of children, and also youth engagement and empowering young people in that process. So one of the first acts I did as a new school district trustee was to introduce a board goal, which means really focusing all of our district energies and efforts around the idea of digital citizenship and online safety. So I have worked, like I said, for many years in anti-human trafficking, online protection. But what we're seeing right now is our kids' greatest threats for sexual abuse, exploitation, trafficking really is happening online. And so, and at the same time, they're growing up online, and as Fullerton School District, we have always had since I've been around, we've had a one-to-one iPad policy. So we give kids technology, but we I believed, and I still believe, we need to do a really excellent job of keeping them safe and equipping them and empowering them to know how to use that technology in a safe and healthy way. Right. So one of my first acts was making sure that we had a focus on that. And so since then, we've introduced a lot more lessons through our social emotional learning curriculum, through our digital safety and digital technology kind of awareness tools to help kids understand both the threats and the dangers that exist online, but also how to stay safe and what to do if they're in a compromising or dangerous situation, how to seek help from trusted adults, and really finding this balance of a healthy approach to technology and screen time. Because I think both there's real threats and dangers and risks, but then there's also just sort of this mental health issue of screen addictions that we're seeing absolutely affecting our kids. And so helping our kids navigate that, it's a really big challenge. I think for adults, we're figuring these things out. But that's a really critical, I think, a part of a 21st century education is to know how to use these tools, but use them in a way that's healthy and safe and appropriate. So that was one of our first acts. One of my first things as a trustee was to make sure we brought that perspective to the board. And then I've seen it rolled out in many ways. Even just yesterday, we had a board meeting and we were looking at the LCAP, the Local Control and Accountability Plan for our schools. And that's absolutely embedded in the ways that our schools are functioning, the goals that they have. Every single school is looking at how do we make sure we have digital wellness and digital safe citizenship online. So that's exciting to see that play out. I've also looked at safety from the perspective of we rolled back and really limited cell phones at school a couple years ago. We were seeing that cell phones were being used at the junior highs to film fights, but it was sort of this performative effort where kids were filming fights and then posting them. And imagine this horrible thing happens and then it's all over social media and everybody's seeing it. Right. So we really know that cell phones not only distract kids, keep them from learning in the classroom, but it's that constant kind of FOMO, fear of missing out, that someone's saying something online and I'm not there. And so it really contributes to their sense of anxiety and anxiousness when they're at school. So by eliminating cell phones, we basically created a policy. I brought a policy that said from bell to bell, once they walk on campus, no cell phones at all. And this was a little bit before our governor also pushed for this legislation. So at the beginning, people were kind of like, oh, this will never work. Kids will fight back. Teachers will be spending all their time saying, put away your cell phones. And you know what? It worked.
Right.
And to the point where teachers actually said, I didn't think it would, but thank you so much. It's made my job so much better.
I bet.
And so we really saw a change in that, decrease in fights. I think we're seeing, the culture around cell phones really changed at our schools because of just from the top down, it was a no tolerance policy. We're just not going to do it. And we can do that.
Well, I think it is a very sensible idea because if you think about it, this day and age, adults, even do it. They're trying to outdo each other to be that most famous one. So why would not kids try and mimic that and do the same? So taking away that thing, that device that could make that happen, I mean, isn't that bad? Now, you mentioned, obviously, because of your experience and background, and you were talking about how you're training children to see, maybe things that are a little odd, but these predators, they're very smart. They're always trying to outsmart everything. And I think of even our own child. She's not online very often at all, but the little bit she would be, she's not going to tell us till afterwards. Parents, again, sometimes I'm stuck doing something on Instagram and the kid knows which button to push. What things can parents look for without seeming like they're hovering over the kid regarding online predators and websites that you shouldn't go to? What advice would you give to them?
Well, my first advice is delay as much as possible. I think that I'm raising 2 girls.
Right.
They're 13 and 15. And I tell parents, the worst thing you can do for your daughter's self-esteem is social media. Right. We just know from the research, it is not good for their well-being and their sense of self, body image. It really is damaging. So I think as much as we can delay and then have open conversations about social media, and I know screens and technology, it's not all social media, but what we're seeing is actually gaming is a huge risk to our kids right now. It is absolutely a platform where predators,
they can talk to each other,
people
can't they?
Exploit children. And so they build trusted relationships with kids. They may pretend to be a child themselves. They begin by innocent conversations, and then it turns into, send me an image, do this for me. And it escalates to sexual abuse or other forms of exploitation. We're seeing the fastest rising trend right now is teenage boys in financial and sextortion, and which is basically the idea of blackmail, extortion, where someone's usually begins with someone sends a nude image and then says, send me one of yours. And so oftentimes teens think they're talking to a young, attractive young girl, and they send a nude image. And then it's actually, in some cases, a man in Nigeria. Like, there are literally international rings of these people who then exploit young boys and say either it escalates in the sexual content, send me more, or else I'll share it with everybody or you'll be shamed because the entire football team will see this, how embarrassing this is. Or they ask for money. And so it's, if you don't send me $500, all your network will see this image. And not only is it illegal, any sexual abuse images of children is always illegal and should be reported. But it really is leading to really dangerous consequences, to the point where we've lost a lot of teenagers by suicide because they feel so trapped, so shamed by the way they've been exploited and abused in this situation. So I try to start with parents by saying it's so critical that we have open communication with our kids and say, you will never get in trouble for coming to me asking for help. Right. We want our kids to know we make mistakes. You might do something that you regret. Stupid thing, right? I will forgive you. We will get over it. I will help you get through this together. Right. We don't want our kids to feel like they have to hide that from us, because that's what leads to these, endless, these consequences that cannot be reversed. These things can be fixed, right? So, and there are websites out there now. TakeItDown.com is, or through the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, is a great website that you can report even anonymously, and they will help remove nude images of children from platforms that have a partnership with them, like Instagram, TikTok, things like that. So there are ways to help kids navigate these really tough situations, but it starts with seeking help, of saying, I'm in a bad place and I need help, and parents not losing their minds and punishing and freaking out and shaming, but instead helping their kids through that process. So I think having those open conversations, I always say, it's so critical to begin the conversation, talk about it with our kids without shame, without judgment, but just say, these things can happen and it's not a kid's fault, but I don't want you to be in that bad situation. So let's talk about how we can stay safer. And really, again, not like removing technology all completely, but helping them navigate it safely.
Now, talking, not having to go into privacy laws and all the other bits and pieces that go on, are there agencies, because we have a lot of security type agencies, do they somehow try to police some of these game consoles, or is that like not allowed? I mean, what is
Yeah,
what is the, you know, if there's an issue there, then we need to address it somehow. What is going on?
Unfortunately, not enough. A lot of the big technology companies, whether that's Meta and Instagram and TikTok and social media, Google, the gaming platforms like Roblox, and there's just so many where there is not enough happening. And even the efforts, like I know there's been other countries have made more significant efforts, Australia, the UK, to really limit ages of who's allowed to use these spaces. But the jury's still out to see if that really makes has an impact and how it protects kids. Because I've been hearing a lot about even that forcing more to kind of the dark web, and obviously they're kids are very smart, and they can oftentimes get around a lot of the filters and ways that we're trying to keep them safe. So that's why I always say I think kids will oftentimes find a way around the safeguards that we put up. So again, it's really about building trust and communication with your kids. Because I think it's our job to create every filter and kind of barrier we can to keep kids from seeing and accessing things that are inappropriate for them. But we also have to talk to them about what to do when they do see it, when they do get there. Because we're not always there. And whether that's they go to a friend's house and a friend doesn't have the same filters and things that we do at our house, or they pull up their phone and show them an image, our kids need to be prepared to say, I don't like that. That makes me uncomfortable. I know that's not safe. I'm not going to look. Not because my mom will get mad, but really because it's for their own best interest as well.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
So moving along from that a little bit, and then we'll move on to the real stuff, because it's such a really good topic.
It is real stuff.
Thank you.
There's
it
so
really
much.
is.
Yeah.
So what do you see with? I mean, you've helped it a little bit by sort of like conversating. Phones for a while. Cyberbullying, that's a big deal these days. The police are all over that these days as well. What do you see? What's your experience, and what are your mindset towards it?
It absolutely happens, yeah. And not only peer-to-peer kids, but we're seeing a huge growth with AI in the role it's playing in cyberbullying and exploitation and abuse.
Really?
We're seeing reports all around the country and the globe of young people using AI notification tools to create child abuse images of their peers. 10 years ago when I was doing this work, I would say, don't post inappropriate pictures. Right? Now you can post your school yearbook photo and somebody can take it and nudify it. It's really scary. And so I think we have a responsibility as adults not only to talk to our kids about the important, like the ethics, and really hold them accountable that this is harmful. Like if they're thinking about doing this, really talking about the consequences, that this is a crime, and really helping them see, be responsible not to create these images, but then also for our young people to, again, know there's no shame. If someone has done this to you, it's not your fault. And to help them walk through that process, it's scary and hard, but it's not the end of the world. And so helping kids walk through that, if that's a crime that's happened to them, to get through it, and help them process that is a really important piece, because unfortunately we're going to see more and more of it. And so we need to both, as I think as school district, we need to hold kids accountable when they make these bad choices, and help them learn through that lesson, but also support the trauma that comes from kids that have experienced those things.
Now, we hear a lot about, areas of safe spaces, especially in colleges, right? But, with a school, things like that, the safe space, great idea. But then is there somebody there to help you? Because you were talking before, really, you might need to talk to somebody.
Absolutely.
Is that something that schools are looking at now, high school, elementary? I don't know what level you're looking at.
Yeah. We have mental health professionals at every single school. Yeah, so whether that's, it may not be this issue specifically, but supporting our kids no matter what they're going through absolutely is critical. It is part of serving our children, and it is part of public education now, as we have to address the mental health challenges that our kids are facing. Exploitation and abuse is part of that.
Now, you were mentioning before a little bit about how obviously funding can be a little bit challenging today than maybe it was a couple of years ago. Whether it continues or not, nobody knows. Everything's up in the air. So what types of things do you have to do to overcome these challenges? Because you can't just close down the science lab because now you haven't got funding for it. What do you have to do as a district?
Well, we just approved our budget for 25.
26, 27?
27. We're there yet, right? Yeah. 26, 27. And the good news is Fullerton School District is doing really well. We are operating in the black. We've got some reserves, about $24 million that we've been able to kind of carry along through the years. And we're doing really well. Whereas many districts, because of declining enrollment, because of just financial uncertainties, they've been laying off teachers and they've had a lot of financial troubles, but we're doing well. And I'm really grateful for that. I'm really excited. That means we get to focus on, serving our kids and doing what's good for them. We've also been really aggressive about going after grants. The state of California has provided a lot of support for what I would call like holistic wraparound services and support for kids. So we are benefiting from community schools grants, which allow us to serve some of our Title I schools with really additional supports for families that address like holistic needs of kids and families to make sure that they're thriving and learning well in school. And we also have some additional grants for after-school programming. The state of California has really stepped up with what are called ELAP grants to provide after-school care for kids, and that's supporting our summer programming as well, so that families at work have a safe space and a healthy space for kids to continue to learn and grow and be cared for during the summer and after school, but also reduces learning loss and making sure kids are continuing to keep their skills up over the summer, so we're not set back when August starts up, school starts up again. So I would say we're actually doing pretty well. We're in a pretty good financial place. I think the economic situation is always uncertain, and especially with the new governor coming in soon, we'll have to see if the next administration really prioritizes education in California, because the majority of our budget comes from the state. But we're doing well, and I think part of that is because we've been really thoughtful about making sure that our investments are we're knowledgeable about what's long-term and what's short-term funding, so that we're not, spending a lot on like salaries for teachers and then suddenly the funding's gone, but really being thoughtful about how we utilize the funds that are available to us, supporting the teachers and the staff as best we can, but then using one-time monies or special grant block money to do infusions of opportunities for our kids.
So low enrollment is sometimes prime with some schools, and there seems to be quite a few things. Some kids are going charter school, other ones are getting schooled from home, and I don't want to address all that system, but basically, what does that do for a school district? I mean, if there's low enrollment, that means there's less maybe funding for the school might close.
Absolutely.
Could you take us through like the good and bad points to this so people understand?
I don't know how many good points there are, but,
Yes.
but declining enrollment is an issue that all of the state of California is pretty much facing. Even when we look at communities that are still growing, like there are some growth in Brea, but especially Irvine, their enrollment is slowing down.
Right.
Even if it's not negative numbers.
Sure.
But it's really due to the fact that, especially in Southern California, it's just expensive to live here. And so young families are not buying homes, they're not staying here, and they're not raising their kids here. So, and then, we've had some impact with the slowdown in immigration as well. So families that may have moved here for the opportunity to have a better life we're not seeing the influx in the same way. So it's a California challenge. It's an urban challenge that we're all facing together. I would say, fortunately, Fullerton is our declining enrollment is a little less, and I think that's because people like our school. Our community has an excellent reputation of excellent schools. People want to be in Fullerton School District. They find ways to get here, whether that's because anyone who lives and works in Fullerton can send their kids here, and we have lots of folks that transfer their children to Fullerton because of our excellent schools. And we see that once kids attend, they tend to stay. We're not seeing a drop out of students, but what we're seeing is just fewer and fewer kids coming from the beginning. So our kindergarten classes right now have about 200 less kids than our graduating 8th grade classes.
Oh, that's quite a lot.
So you're over time, that's 9 years, 10 years. If you start with TK, the kids, we're just getting fewer kids starting in our schools. And again, that's due to expensive. We have a housing crisis issue.
Right.
We have an affordability crisis issue, and families aren't having as many children. We have a lot of adults who are choosing not to have children, not to have the traditional marriage, family approach to life. And so we just don't have as many kids to educate. But, we continue to educate the kids we have and do the very best we can. But the way that California funding is set up is all of our money, our funding is based on average daily attendance. So it's based on not how many kids say they're coming to your school, but how many show up every day. And our attendance rate is, in the high 90s. But if somebody's sick or they go on vacation, we don't get paid for their presence, right?
It's like bums on seats.
Yes,
right.
But you have to obviously staff for the total amount of kids. If everybody shows up, you got to have enough teachers and janitors and lunch service people to make sure they're all taken care of, right? So that discrepancy sometimes can be challenging, but certainly as we see declining enrollment, less and less need for educating our kids, we have to make decisions, And so one of the strategies, this is kind of a financial HR approach, we did with Fullerton School District is this last year, we offered some incentive for early retirement. And so we obviously, the numbers add up when you've got folks at the end of their careers, they're being paid a lot more than brand new teachers. We also had probably more teachers than we needed for every single child that was now enrolled. We don't want to lay people off. We don't want to let go of folks. But if we can encourage them by what we did is we met the gap between if they retire now, we make sure that they have the healthcare coverage they need before Medicare kicks in.
Okay.
So we said if you retire now, there was some additional money that was available for basically a bonus for the one time for all of the staff to enjoy. And we made sure that they had the medical coverage they needed to get to that place where they could enjoy all the retirement benefits. So that encouraged up to, I think it was 40 teachers and more than a dozen classified staff to retire a little bit early. Maybe they were old enough, but just thought, maybe I'll hang on a little bit longer, or they were a few years shy and this was the bonus, the opportunity that they wanted. So that meant that we kind of have a reset and we're able to hire the appropriate number of teachers we need, but not have to let extra teachers go.
That's a nice way of doing it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's really nice. That's good. So talking about teachers, there's been quite a lot of, again, controversy in the news about how difficult it is for teachers, wages, salaries, teachers' aides, all the rest of things. Obviously being on the board there, that comes across your desks all the time. What's going on in your life? What do you see that's going on?
Yeah, I mean, teachers are definitely underpaid. I wish as a society, we don't value our teachers enough and we don't pay them appropriately for the hard work that they do every single day and the importance of the work that they do. But again, our funding comes from the state and California is better than most, but we work with the budget we have. One of the biggest challenges I hear from teachers absolutely is what we call behaviors in the classroom, challenging behaviors that we see, which oftentimes begin with, I think we're still coming out of COVID years.
Sure.
Kids, the socialization and experiences are somewhat different. There's all kinds of reasons and theories on why, whether that's screen addictions, parenting choices, but the classroom looks a bit different than it did 20 years ago. And so sometimes that can be really challenging. Kids that may not have the social skills of knowing how, again, it's like, are our expectations right for the kids? Or are the kids meeting our expectations? But, we expect kids to be able to sit and listen to a teacher for 10 minutes.
Sure.
And sometimes that's hard for kids. So there's some stirring that's, I think, going on in the world of education right now. And, but as a school district, we've been really trying hard to meet teachers where they're at. We've added a lot of new innovative positions, roles with kind of a both behavioral health therapy approach as well as just great classroom management, teacher experiences. We just approved a contract last night for behavior TOSA's, Teachers on Special Assignment, to coach and help other teachers, people who say like, wow, she's got it dialed in, her classroom's awesome, look at the way the kids, she says line up and they're all ready to go, what is it she's doing differently, helping teachers really learn from one another and gain that confidence and skills and abilities to manage, classrooms that may be challenging.
It sounds like it's shifted a whole, like schools, as we know as school, has shifted not only in education, but also the way that you, I suppose, work together with everybody within the faculty then.
Absolutely.
Like it's changed. It's almost taken a change. So from what you were saying there, I feel that what you're saying is there still is a little bit of a shift until it seems to be running in the right direction you want it to be. Is that?
Yeah, I don't think we've solved it yet.
Right.
But I also know
be working on it.
I know it's not unique to Fullerton. I think the entire education world is going through this right now. And again, whether that's screens, parenting, we're seeing children with disabilities, and a desire and commitment to inclusion, and like, how do we work that out in a classroom, where everybody's at different levels and abilities. And so I think that is the struggle of public education. It's beautiful and hard and messy, and it changes over time too. And our desire is to meet kids where they're at and support teachers in figuring that out.
So apart from your campaign, what are your main concerns right now?
I think behaviors in the classroom is a challenge. Making sure we're meeting our kids where they're at and supporting our teachers is big, because that's what I hear from our teachers, and it weighs on me, and I carry that in my heart. I want to make sure that we're responsive and listening. I think that not only we've talked about the challenges to the public education and rights of children, both whether they're immigrant status or children with disabilities, a lot of those are being threatened right now at the federal level. And I think, even the idea of bringing up, birthright citizenship and challenging children's right to be here and to receive a public education, which is constitutional and foundational to our American ethos, So those are like big picture questions. And I think along with that is this challenge that we're seeing nationally towards vouchers and sort of undermining public trust in public education. And, the research and study after study show us the most effective tool for improving society, breaking dysfunction, breaking down racism, challenging poverty, cycles of exploitation and abuse is public education. When I worked for World Vision International, I traveled the globe and I saw kids in some of the most poverty-stricken, challenging, violent communities in the world. The number one tool, girls' education, public education, but especially for girls. And that's not because girls are magic, they are magic, but because they were the ones who traditionally have been so marginalized and excluded. Any system that breaks down those barriers, that creates opportunities for the least, the most marginalized, the excluded, and sets them free and gives them that liberty and opportunity to grow and be strong. I mean, that's magic. That's what makes a difference. And so I think that it really shows so short-sighted for us to attack our public education, to discredit it, to undermine it, to underfund it, when that is the best tool we have to create a better society.
Now, you mentioned something there that was stuck in my mind, because you were talking about trust. Trust is a huge factor, and we often use it as a word that rolls off our tongue without sort of putting a lot of meat behind it, so to speak. Given your experience as well, and we do also see controversy videos of parents in front of trustees and districts and what have you, talking about some of the curriculum or the special books, these new books that people are doing. I don't want to put you on the spot, but where do you sit as a school district with some of these things that seem to be a little bit more controversial, or maybe we shouldn't be showing, or maybe we should, I don't know.
Yeah. I'm kind of big picture. I'm against book banning. I think that we really want to steer away from a focus on limiting or excluding information from our kids, but really it's about giving them opportunity and access to information. And there's so many great things for them to read and experience and learn and know that I think sometimes it's very short-sighted and just a very narrow view to focus on the few books that people don't want to see, when there's so much beauty and wonderful things for them to explore in our libraries or in our curriculum. But yeah.
Do you think, because, when I think back, I mean, I finished school in 87, so it was some time ago, but going back, school libraries, they were more to do really with very much education. So poets, maybe things of history, things like that. Where these days, I'll go to a school library and maybe it's a little bit more like a regular public library. Is that where have we sort of lost track slightly, and we need to bring it in and go, well, actually, school's more about what we're teaching at school, and then these are sort of outside curriculums, or you feel that it's taken that space now? Has school taken that?
I think there's a couple things going on. Maybe one is the research library, the card catalog, where we're looking up articles and such. That's all online now.
Yes, that's true.
So kids aren't necessarily going to the Encyclopedia Britannica, right? That's all online. We don't even have, I don't know that we have those in our libraries anymore. If we are, it's just for the fun of the pictures, right? I love those as a kid. But really, when they're going to our libraries, what I see them, especially at our elementary level, I see them falling in love with literature. I see books that are high interest, that they want to read, that allow them to step into someone else's shoes, another world, another time in history. And I think that's really the role, especially at elementary, is we want our kids to love reading. And so I see our librarians doing an amazing job, and our teachers too in the classrooms, really bringing these high interest books, these sometimes challenging topics, but really getting kids excited about reading. Because if they love to read, then they'll do the research later, and they'll do the card catalogs, and they won't do card catalogs. They'll do the search online, and they'll find that the peer-reviewed journals and all of that later. But I think our libraries are really about giving kids an opportunity to fall in love with reading, to experience new things, to be challenged in their perspectives. You asked about why I ran from the very beginning. I remember at early days when I was considering running, there was an NPR story on the radio, and I was in the car with my kids. And they were talking about a book that was banned in Texas and kind of what happened, and the school board and parents and the controversy. And we were listening, and I heard I think she was maybe 10 at the time, my daughter, pipe up in the back, and she said, "Oh, I read that book. It's really good, Mom." And I was like, "Oh," and she said, "Yeah, it's just about a boy, but he dealt with racism." And she said, "I think it's good that kids learn about that." And and it just to me was such a clear reason why to run, to defend our public education and our teachers and the right of kids to read good books that deal with racism or deal with hard topics, because I think our kids can handle it, and whether they've already experienced it themselves and it helps them see themselves and be reflected and think about their own experience and be validated in that, or whether, they're a white girl and say, "Oh, I'm glad I learned about the racism that this black boy experienced. Now I understand it better." Those are important experiences for our kids, and banning those books or keeping them out of our libraries is not beneficial. It actually hurts our kids.
Well, I think, our daughter's 6, so we're in a whole different world right now. But they see and read things differently. We as adults, it's very easy for us, without us even knowing sometimes, that maybe we're putting our own thoughts or ideas into what's there, rather than just not reading between the lines and just seeing what they are. And that's a prime example of that is, your daughter there is just seeing it through a 10-year-old's eyes and what she's learnt, and she's taking that from us. Where we could be quite easy to jump on another side of it just because our experiences are vaster, or we're thinking a lot more wider. So it makes sort of sense what you're saying there, for sure. It does make sense, that. So talking about, running in and campaigning every 3 years is a big deal to have to do, or nearly 4, should I say. What does it mean to you? Like, what is it that inspires you to go, you know what, I haven't had enough yet. I want to put myself through it. I want to ruin my evenings. I want to spend more time. Like, what is it that makes you continuously want to keep going?
Yeah. Well, I love our kids, I love our schools and our staff, and so I want to keep being on their team, supporting them, and I feel like I've learned so much in this experience to be more equipped to do a better job, to really have an understanding of the nuances and the players and the funding streams, and just make more informed, wise decisions. Because it's easy in the beginning to think, oh, we just need to fix this problem, do this, and it'll be fixed. And then, oh, it's a lot more complex, or it takes a lot longer to steer that ship. So I think definitely gained a lot more insight that allows me to continue to make an important contribution. I'm super excited about our new superintendent. We were so grateful, and I'm so grateful that I had the chance to learn and grow under Dr. Bob Pletka as our superintendent for over 13 years. But in this transition time, people have had feelings. It's been nerve-wracking for it to have a major change. But our new superintendent, Dr. Gregson is coming in on July 1st, very, very soon. And I'm just excited for what she's going to bring, and I want to see her succeed. So I want to be there with her in the next 4 years as she's beginning to take on FSD, getting to know our culture, introducing her to our people, our staff, our way of doing things, and then seeing what insight and perspective she brings to it. She's extremely enthusiastic, excited to be a part of what we're doing. And we chose her because we thought she will bring fresh eyes, a new perspective. She's got a lot of experience with both kind of the business side of things, the numbers as a CBO of her district currently, but also instructional excellence and leading kind of in teachers and helping them understand how to do best curriculum and teaching. So I think she's going to bring a really great perspective. And she's primarily worked with Title I, majority minority schools, and seen real results. And so we're excited for her to bring her experience to our district.
Now, I see this with, we see it a lot because we work with many city councils, and when a council member, God bless them, first comes on the dais, they're fresh. They have loads of ideas what they want to do, which is great. Yeah. But sometimes you can get it seasoned, and you're moving into your second term here. Would you say that when somebody moves into the second or even third term, let's say, in such a position, that you are bringing a lot more sort of calm to the plate, maybe even mentorship for newer trustees? Would you say that you see that, or is it just still all like, no, it's what I want?
No, absolutely. I'm board president right now, so there's definitely a new sense of responsibility of wanting to make sure our board is cohesive, that we're working together and we're governing together. And that's, it's been a challenge, but a good responsibility for me to take on. And surprisingly, to have that role after only 3 years. I'm now the second most senior member of our board. We've had a lot of change and turnover since I've been on it. When I started, and I was the only new person 4 years ago, board members have been on the board for 18, 20 plus years. And now me with 3 years, I'm the second most senior. So everyone else is brand new, So I think that there's definitely a desire and a responsibility to shepherd that and wisdom and experience that the limited experience I have in 3 years to make sure that continues going forward, and that I'm helping our newer trustees really learn and be effective in their roles too.
And what do you wish to see moving forward? Obviously, you put your name in the hat again. You'd like to run again. What is it you're looking to maybe continue with or bring in the next 4 years?
Well, some of it's more of the same. I think we have to continue to have bold leadership in this current climate and make sure that our kids are safe, protected, welcome, and encouraged to continue growing. So I want to continue in that role of a champion for our kids and for public education. I think, as I shared, behaviors, mental health challenges of our kids continues to be a major challenge that I want to make sure we're meeting. We're continually asking the questions of, are we doing enough? Do we need more staffing? Do we need better training for our staff and support for our kids? And that's something I'll continue to prioritize. We've been under a real process of looking at special education as well. About 3 years ago, we started this process of really asking the question of, are we identifying the right children to be classified of needing special education? And are we having consistency in the way we do that, so that there's no bias, inequality in that process, and that even school to school, teacher to teacher, we're having the right systems to identify kids and then get them the support that they need. We're in the middle of that journey, and I want to continue it to fruition and see the results. But what we're seeing is already a better job of identifying the kids that need to be supported through special education, but also teasing out those that really, maybe it's a language barrier, maybe it's attendance, that they haven't been at school as often as they should to benefit from the education. Maybe they just need some intervention and then things are fixed, and it's not really a disability, it's just a need for additional support. So we're getting better at that, and I'd really love to see that continue. And I think one of the, like I said, one of my goals and the reasons I wanted to be on the board is really to bring this child protection perspective. There's been other things I've worked on as well, including increasing the standards for the adults that work with our kids, making sure that they're safe. I've helped raise that for all of our staff and our partners and contractors in Fullerton School District. So I want to continue down that road. One of the things we're looking at in the new school year in the fall is to pilot a new curriculum for child abuse prevention. Oh. So something that I brought to our staff and said, this is important. I think our kids need to know both their rights, but also if something is happening, how to go to a safe, trusted adult and get the support they need. So beginning those conversations, but it's not my job as the school trustee to then write the curriculum and say, here's the book, use this, teach this, right? So our staff have been through an entire process, just like we did if we were adopting a math textbook or a science textbook. Right. They've gone through that process of reviewing the curriculum that exists, finding the best one for Fullerton School District that works from our TK through our 8th graders, and then piloting it now in the fall with some of our classrooms. So I'm excited to see that come through and see how that makes an impact for our kids, because I think every single child deserves the right to know and be safe, whether that's at school or at home.
So basically, the open mic thing is, if we've reached this point of the episode where we want to hand over the mic to you, I've asked you loads of questions. Is there something we've missed? Is there a message you would like to share? Or something like that?
One is I want to share a story.
Okay, you can share a story, all right.
And I think of it as like a full circle story moment that really brings me a lot of pride and joy.
Okay.
I've spent my adult career working in anti-human trafficking and child abuse prevention, engaging young people to know their rights and prevent abuse. And I've worked with Vanguard University as well as international organizations. And a lot of what I've done is teach young people about human trafficking and exploitation and abuse. One of the things we do is we host every year a conference at Vanguard University called Know More, Do Better. And it's grown over the last few years. It's in partnership with all of the Orange County Human Trafficking Task Force, a lot of the nonprofits in the community that are working to protect young people. But we bring, this year, it was over 700 junior hires from throughout Orange County to Vanguard University to learn about human trafficking. And they heard a story from a survivor of human trafficking, Martha Trujillo, who's actually from Fullerton and involved and engaged in our Fullerton School District, as well as my college students that I've trained and taught and helped develop a curriculum that they then teach to young people in junior highs and high schools throughout the county. So Fullerton School District kids came to this event as well. We had Anaheim and Santa Ana, Samuele Academy, different groups, but Fullerton School District sent students from every junior high and middle school that we have, all 5. So the kids came, it was an amazing day. Huge success. It brought me so much pride and joy to see not only my college students who I teach doing their thing on stage, using the curriculum I had helped create, this huge event, but then our Fullerton junior hires attending and our staff coming in and learning as well in that process. And it was just an amazing day. Afterwards, one of the teachers at Nicholas Junior High said, our club, our mental health club on campus went and attended, which I encouraged them to come, and they want to bring back the information and they want to teach the junior high teachers at Nicholas Junior High what they learned. So these junior high kids on their own initiative not only attended and learned, but then they came back, did more research on online safety and the connections to mental health, and then they created a presentation which included some of the slides I had created. And they presented it to every single junior high, Nicholas Junior High teachers and staff.
Wow, that is super cool, isn't it?
And I got to go and watch these, often, many of them very shy junior hires get up in front of the entire faculty of their school and present this information because it was so important. They were willing to put themselves out there to teach their teachers what they had learned.
Well, the future leaders right there.
Absolutely.
That's a lovely story.
It was a lovely story.
A really nice story. That is nice. So you said you had 2 though. Was it what was your other one? What was the other one?
I want to encourage our community to get involved with our schools. I think Fullerton, one of the things I love about the district and I love about our city is how engaged we are. Fullerton has, as a hallmark, I think, a really strong parent engagement, community engagement, nonprofit support. It really is beautiful. And we see examples of that, like in Love Fullerton, where every single one of our school gets a makeover that day, right? And we see it in a Rising Stars program, which is where adults can volunteer to be mentors for our kids. We see it in so many ways that people are showing up, whether that's supporting a PTA, a fun run, going to a talent show presentation, going to the theater performances of our kids. There's so many ways that people can get involved. And I think our kids have this ability to bring us together.
Yeah.
And I learned that when I worked at World Vision International. I learned that watching small villages in Africa or in Albania, where I worked for a while. When we focus on what's best for our kids, we all benefit and we all thrive. And so I want to really encourage people to think about, if you're looking for a way to have meaning, to have purpose for your life, or just to give back, I think investing in our kids and our community through our Fullerton School District is a really important way to do that.
That's a great way to end this today's episode. Thank you so very much, Ruthi, and thank you for all your time. Thank you for your service to the school district. And for those of you who are in that school district, what district are you in? What do you serve?
Trustee Area 4.
Just Trustee Area 4. Then
it's near Golden Hill, Raymond Elementary, and Ladera Vista Junior High.
There you go. And you can, what's your website that they can visit you on?
RuthiHanchett.com.
There you go. There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Ruthi, thank you so very much for coming on today.
It was my pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you, listeners, for tuning in to Chamber Talk. Until next time, stay inspired and connected by visiting nocchamber.com and selecting sign up for news at the homepage. For more interviews, visit chambertalk.podbean.com.